Several years ago, I went swimming in the blue, clear water of the Guadalupe. I swam upstream and found myself going over an underwater cliff. The water got shallow, turned pale yellow, and I stood on this ledge and continued upstream on foot. I came to a second ledge, this one at chest level that had water running over it. I climbed up there and I saw that this ledge was indented with deep pools that the water ran through. Some of the pools were long, so you could float downstream and see people's feet at eye level. I was floating down one of these longer pools when a giant rock blocked my passage. I climbed out and stood above on the ledge and watched as a young boy disappeared underneath the rock and appeared again on the other side. He had gone through an underwater passageway. I wanted to try, so I jumped in, dunked under, and I dove downward through the hole. The little boy's body was slim, but mine was too wide at the hips, and I got stuck. Schleiermacher says that we ought to seek out what is most precious through our deepest needs, that we name the divine by naming our absolute dependency. And let me tell you, in that moment, what I was absolutely dependent on was air. I needed breath more than I needed anything else, more than I had ever needed anything. So absolutely. So, Schleiermacher, I would name the breath as the most precious thing in my world, and I wouldn't be the first, because whole religions are founded on the breath. Whole religions use the breath as the core of their spiritual practice. As the story goes in the ancient text we have today, God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. So this sermon could just stop right here. We could say, we found it. We found the window into the soul of the universe. But the Hebrew word for breath, ruach, has more than one meaning. It's translated into English in many ways, but in Hebrew, it's all one word. So if we want to deeper understand the poetry of the Torah, the beginning of the Bible, and to better understand what it has to say about absolute dependence, then we can turn to these other meanings of the word ruach, for they are different angles on the same idea. Ruach is also translated as spirit. Listen to the passage again. God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the spirit, and the man became a living being. Whatever it is that touches your spirit is absolutely necessary for your life. This passage is telling us that whatever reminds you of your spirit ought to be central to your life. Maybe it's family, maybe it's the present moment, meaningful work, loving ourselves. Whatever that thing is that touches your spirit, that is absolutely necessary. Being close to the things that we love in this world is the only way to become a truly living being. Secondly, ruach is translated as wind. Listen once more. God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the wind, and the man became a living being. What would it mean to understand our breath to be as mighty, as powerful as a tornado, as gentle and warm as a breeze? The very fact that we breathe air and eat the fruits of this earth shows our deep connection to our bodies and the body of the earth. One only needs to listen to the wind pushing through the curtains on a spring night to understand how sacred it is that we carry within us the same ability to move air with our bodies. That sacred wind flowing in and out of our nostrils, reminding us constantly of our own power and agency. Yes, it is beautiful to think about being dependent upon the Spirit, to need art or love like one needs breath. It is beautiful to recognize ourselves as wind makers. But there is one translation of ruach that I love the most. It is this meaning of the word for breath that saved me when I could not breathe. For ruach also means courage. When I was stuck beneath that rock, I couldn't summon the breath part of ruach. That connection to my life force was gone. So instead, I summoned the courage part. And it saved me. One moment I was stuck, my hip bones pushing against the rocks, panicking, and then I summoned my courage from somewhere within me, pushed forward with all my strength, freed myself, and swam upwards towards the air. Listen again to this passage. God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils courage, and the man became a living being. First courage, then living. The logic of this passage is that in order to live, we need courage. If we aren't courageous in our lives, then we experience a loss of life that is different but similar to the loss of not having breath. But I don't have to tell you about courage, because you all know how courageous you've had to be. I know that you have all been incredibly courageous in your lives, and not because you were called to be a hero, but because it was required of you to live. We don't only need courage when we're stuck beneath a rock, we need it in our everyday lives. We need courage to look at our bank account. We need courage to be honest, to invite people over. We need courage to face the holidays, to face illness, to ask for forgiveness, to keep on trying to make that community that we all want so badly. We need courage all the time. It's not a bad thing to have to be courageous. It's great. It means that we are connected to our lives, that we've got something on the line. It means we've got something that we care about. So I wonder, what do you need to be courageous about right now? As the year turns, what would you do if you were to be really courageous right now? However it is that we came to be, we are these earthen vessels of courage and breath that we are. We are meant to breathe deeply. I remember those first breaths, that I pulled those breaths in from inside of me. And that is where our courage comes from too. We are earthen courage vessels, and we have a choice to be courageous in our lives or to experience a type of death. It is my hope beyond all hope that we recognize how precious our lives are, how beautiful it is to be in a co-creative relationship with the air and our lives. And I hope we do have courage because we can break free of the things that get us stuck. We can rely on our courage to bring us to places that we thought were off limits to us. And we can go back to the breath at any moment and be fed by the air. Any breath we take can be a comfort that is perfect. And if you can't summon your courage, summon the breath and breathe deeply and see where that gets you. And if you can't feel your life force, be courageous and see if that makes you feel it. And when the time comes, as it will for all of us, that you no longer have breath, summon your courage. Blessed be and amen.